So glad to be here and get a chance to talk to you chicken lovers, and want to introduce you one of the stars of the show I brought for you to come admire. So this is Mrs. Silky, okay? So she's about 3 years old, you know, excellent egg layer, and you can see the thing that's special about her, about the feathers on the feet. You know, and you can see how calm she is. And I brought some other young ladies. These are a bit younger. I have, okay, you going to talk a little bit? That's great. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is a barred rock. She's a pullet. So she's less than a year old. We'll go over some of these terms about coming to know all about chickens and how to talk to people about chickens, and it's a whole nother world. It's a whole language you're going to get into. So just curious, how many folks already have chickens? Great. How many folks want to have chickens? Wow, okay, you see that? All right. Yeah, well, I'm really glad that one of our local chicken breeders is here, Mary Ellen, out in the lobby, and as well as we have a store represented here that sells chicken feed and everything. So I'm going to put her back, and later on I'll bring her out to a table I have in the back, and you guys can come and meet them and hold them if you've never held a chicken. You know, you can see how calm she is. I mean, they are your best friend, your best buddy, as well as they want to feed you every day. Okay. And when you do, it's always a good idea to clean your hands afterwards. Okay? Good hygiene is good for you and for your chickens. Okay. What I have in store for you today is in my presentation, I want to go over some basic information and some of your resources for backyard chicken raising. Okay, so I'm covering the small end of today's program, which means growing for your own personal consumption, because that's where we are right now. We actually are awaiting possible modifications on some of the regulations from FDACS to allow smaller producers of eggs and poultry to get into the marketplace that won't have the burden of some of the regulations for the larger producers, but it's still not out yet. I keep asking them when. They say any day now. So, and then I also want to make sure we go over what's called biosecurity. It's not homeland security. We're talking biosecurity. This is to keep your birds healthy and safe. And then, of course, try to touch upon what all of you want to do in terms of being part of the solution for getting more sustainable local foods produced in our communities by producing eggs for yourself and maybe sharing with your neighbors, okay? And then, of course, at the end, we got to go over the regulations to make sure everyone's aware about that, especially the zoning restrictions or allowances to touch upon that. So this is kind of where we're going to go, try to touch upon a lot of information in the short time that we have together. And like I say, I'll be back at my table later on to hopefully have some answers for some of your questions. So why do you want to have chickens? Maybe some of these reasons are why you first thought about having chickens, and they're all legitimate, okay? And chickens can be your best pet. They can feed you nutritious food. They can let your kids learn more about how or where food comes from. I like these ones at the bottom too, you know, just like you have, you could be the Mr. or Mrs. Hydroponic and share all the abundance of what you're growing with your neighbors. Well, you can share that with your eggs too, and it really goes along in terms of helping neighborhoods come together. And then in my work at my county fair, I've noticed, because the city of Sarasota now allows to have urban chickens, that I'm seeing a lot more mingling of urban folks and rural folks at my county fair all around our 4-H projects around poultry. And it's great. It's great. Otherwise, there's fewer and fewer opportunities for those groups of people to get to know each other. And for me, that's a big, big plus. So I encourage you, those of you who want to have chickens and can't have chickens, to go get your chickens. So just a little bit of interest here, and it's going to pertain back to some things that I'll mention. Where did chickens come from? Okay, well, the story goes, they originated from a jungle fowl, a red jungle fowl, okay, and over many, many years, thousands of years, in fact, there, you know, I was reading the history up on it, you know, you get the dispersal of and the domestication of the what started out here went by way of the Indian continent and then to Europe, and all that happened 3,000-4,000 BC. You know, so it's been they've been domesticated, moving around the globe for many, many years. But look at the difference between what we started at in terms of size and how many eggs per year, and what we are at now. Here's our layers. You know, can almost lay an egg one a day. So, and that's the backyard variety, as well as the production layers, even more. So and also, obviously, chicken meat is very popular, but we're not talking about broiler production today, but you can see the difference in the size of the chickens compared to the original. We want to go over important things about the reproduction and development of chickens. Starting with the egg and doing the full circle to come back around. And speaking of eggs and chickens, I'll hold that thought. We also want to go over a lot of different management things for you to think about to make sure that you keep your chickens healthy, all right? And chickens are social animals, all right? So you never want to have just one chicken, but at the same time, flocks, things can get passed on and pretty quickly throughout a flock if you're not keeping good observation of any changes that you see that might indicate what you have to do on any of these kinds of factors. Okay, and we're going to go over as many of them as I can in this short time with you. So again, the ordinances will touch upon, and so the age-old question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Just kind of curious. How many are chicken believers? All right. And how many are egg believers? Okay. Well, if you do follow this link, you'll get to a newscast that actually proves that this is the right answer for it. So apparently the scientists have discovered that the enzymes for laying down the shell came after there's fossil records for chickens. So so now you can tell all your friends at your chicken parties. One of the first things that you want to do is get familiar with the vernacular, the terms that we use talking about your chickens. This is not only important in terms of learning about, things that you read, they're going to be referring to, okay, what's the color of the earlobe, what's the comb, the wattles, your spurs, how do you deal with some breeds have larger and smaller spurs, the different feathers. Speaking of feathers, you have, if you open up the wing, and I can do that later afterwards, show you these primary, secondary feathers, the coverts on them, and even taking a feather, individual feather, and coming to understand parts of it. So you can actually pluck out the feathers that might not be as barbed as they should, and it'll regrow. And then that would be important if you were showing your birds, like if it was a 4-H project or something like that, or even if you want to have your hen as pretty as she can possibly be. So, but some of the terms to make sure that you understand what they mean when they're used. Obviously, a young chicken is a chick, and so now if it's a female chicken, okay, and it's less than a year old, we call that a pullet. All right, and then over a year old is a hen. Now, it doesn't mean that pullets can't lay eggs. They can, because egg laying can start around 5 to 6 months. So each breed will be a little bit different, but this was a designation made with these terms. Cockerels are males less than a year old. A cock is a male more than a year old, and roosters sort of a generic term for male chickens. And speaking of which, the regulations that do allow urban chickens just about uniformly don't allow roosters. So and we'll go over how, in terms of getting eggs, that's not really a necessity. Okay, hens can lay eggs without having a guy around, a Mr. Rooster. So broilers are what we raise for meat. Layers are egg layers. But there's also dual-purpose breeds that have been domesticated over the years for both purposes. I brought a poster with a lot of pictures of different kinds of breeds, and that's something that you might want to do before you get started. Think about what kind of chicken, or what's the purpose of having your chicken, based on what you like to enjoy by having them. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be able to go to these local chicken breeders and be able to handle them, see if they are the size that you want. These are bantams. These are smaller chickens, but a standard full-size chicken. Some of the breeds can get quite large. If you have children, you want to be able to let them hold it, that might be kind of a really big challenge for them. And also the behavior, how docile they are and friendly. Your local chicken breeders will let you, personally, have firsthand information about this. It's a little bit harder, and it's next to impossible, really, by just looking on an online website or a catalog, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a nice handy-dandy chicken chart website you can go to, and it will tell you everything about every breed. It's really quite a neat resource if you're just kind of don't have a clue as to what kind of breed you want to have. This is a great starting point. I know the handout that we did make available for you, our IFAS document on the basic guide to backyard flocks, has a few of them in the back table, kind of give you some characteristics of them. But let me tell you, there's a lot of breeds. So, in terms of the production side of chickens, now, that's quite different than maybe the objectives of having a backyard chicken. So the broilers actually, are bred to to be harvestable, you know, in very short periods of time, 6 weeks, you know, something like that. Whereas, you know, here's astrolopes and silkies, much slower growing, and they're also egg layers as well. And with the production end of the side of things for egg layers, they also are really meant to lay a lot of eggs, and they're raised totally different than a backyard flock. And we actually have some in the back. Our Mary Ellen had brought some red sex links and black sex links that she can tell you more about if you go back and talk with her during the break. Now you may just like different colors of eggs, which is great, because you've got quite a selection that you can also do by just going with that criteria as well. And you know, here's an example of some of the colors. So, you know, white leghorn gives you white, so does Mrs. Silky here. And the Rhode Island red, this is the one I have here, red eggs, and so is the barred rock, be red. So, but Aracanas, you know, Americanas, they come out with these great greens and blue colors, and there'll be some variation in the eggs. So you can have your Easter egg hunt every day of the week, you know, by having representatives of different breeds. Another very important thing to know about is that there is quite a bit of effort going to make sure that we don't lose some of our lesser breeds. Okay, and why is that so? Well, because the poultry industry has really selected very few breeds to go forward with, and up until this current national wave of interest for backyard flock keeping, there was a lot of these lesser breeds that you know, were not being raised, and there was a danger that we would lose them, because it can happen that a disease will come and wipe out a flock. I mean, that's in the realm of possibility. And so with the fewer people that are raising some of these lesser breeds, you know, the less of a backup system we have. And so there are organizations like the American Livestock Breeds Conservancy that are very interested in connecting with you to raise some of these breeds that are on their very endangered list to think about getting involved with. And you can go to their website to learn more about that. So here's some of the ones that they've identified that meet their criteria. These happen to be broiler ones that were, you know, described as being raised as broilers, but they also are egg layers too. So this and the Buff Orpington's a gorgeous bird, you know, quite much larger, very tame. If you want a lap chicken, there's your lap chicken right there. So okay, back to let's talk about the basic biology of birds a little bit here, of chickens. All right, so fertile egg is going to be incubated by the mama hen, and then it's going to hatch and turn into another full adult, which will then repeat the process. All right. Now, as I said, hens can lay eggs without a rooster, and this kind of is a neat little picture here to show you how the process of laying an egg works. So from the ovary, let's see. Okay. So from the ovary, starting here, is where you can see the sequence that happens, where that begins to creates the egg, and then here's where the sperm would be. And so if there's no rooster, there is no sperm. So, but the same thing will happen. You keep going through here. Here's where the egg white gets added in this part of the tract, and then it's not to down here where the enzymes are to actually lay the shell. So, and then the egg is laid. So from here to here takes roughly 24 hours. So that's why you get an egg a day, you know, for a mature hen. And so the first, when the pullet starts laying, it may not be that regular, and also there are, we'll go over some of the factors about egg laying. Yes, sir.
Question: if there is no rooster, would that egg still develop into a chicken?
No, okay. No, it's not a fertile. It's not a fertile egg. Yeah, so the you know, just looking at that, you know, obviously, you know, when you think about the diet of chickens, you know, obviously, you can think about eggs as being high protein sources for us. So protein needs to be very important in their diet, and the shell, the calcium for laying the shell needs to be very important to think about, and I'll give you some more information about that in a second. So basically, also this rhythm takes, what I was trying to say was this, the rhythm might take a little time to develop as the chicken becomes a hen. And so what you see when she first starts laying may not necessarily be what she'll be capable of doing when she's a hen. And some of the first eggs, you know, may be a little bit deformed. You know, the shell is thin or something, and everything. So, but that all gets worked out eventually. So if you want to start your chickens from fertilized eggs, you can buy eggs. Your local breeders can sell you the fertile eggs, as well as you can order these things on mail order, you know, companies. And then, but then you're going to need some equipment. You're going to need an incubator, a brooder, and then when they come out of here and they have their true feathers on, then they can weather. They can tolerate the weather conditions, and then you have to have some kind of coop for them, and then nesting boxes. And so this is what you would do to replace mama hen. You would have to have these kinds of equipment. This was what, you know, typical. There's many kinds and designs of incubators. All right. So basically, the idea is that it maintains the proper. Was that you? Okay. Okay. Maintains the proper temperature and humidity. All right. The shell is actually porous, so the moisture can leave or come in, and so it also needs to. The eggs need to be rotated. The mama hen does this at least 3 times a day. Why is that important? Well, it keeps the yolk center in the egg, and so these units, actually, some of them come with automatic rotators of the eggs on it as well. So I guess it's in the PowerPoint. Okay. So here's some of the details that I just mentioned. And 21 days, plus or minus a day or two, to get from a chick that pips her way out of the shell. And this is showing you the anatomy of an egg, the different parts that again, more vernacular to learn about. And one thing that you typically do when you're raising eggs to be hatched is you do something called candling, which is basically having a very bright light, usually coming out of a box of some kind with a small hole, so the light gets focused on the egg itself. You can actually see through the shell and see what's going on inside, and you'll want to see a certain pattern, and there's books that have the right pictures for you to see to make sure that it's developing properly. And why is this so? Because not every egg develops properly. It's just the way nature is. And 21 days is 21 days. And so if you come to see by using this technique that there's some abnormality, you'd want to remove that egg and if you have another one, replace her in the incubator. So now remember, hatching out is sometimes fast and sometimes not so fast. It can take as long as 3 days, as I've read. Usually not that long, but several hours. And generally, we like to say, you're going to be there watching the little chick trying to come out of the egg, and you might be tempted to want to help crack the egg to help them out, but that's not a good thing to do because you really want a chicken that's going to be able to survive on their own. They're going to have to be very alert, very able to figure out the world for themselves. Sure, you're taking care of them, but you're not going to be there every second. And this is where it all begins, figuring out how to get out of the shell. So sometimes some won't make it. They'll just get so exhausted trying to pip their way through the shell that they won't make it. So after they have come out of the eggs, then what? Okay, you go to your brooder. All right, and what is a brooder? Well, it can be as simple as this, something like this with a light hanging on it like that. Okay, and you're going to have absorbent bedding, shavings or some kind, and why is a brooder important? Well, it's because your chicken has really a lot of development work to do, okay? And it has to, most of the systems, the bodily systems are still developing for the first 6 weeks or so, okay? And so it needs to have temperature control and feed and water, and it's also putting on its first true feathers. Okay, and this is all preparing it for the big world out there to be able to survive and have a very healthy and normal life. So the brooder part is very important. But you can buy brooders. You can have homemade versions of them. It's really up to you. There's some key elements in terms of what makes a good brooder, okay? Yeah, you can buy very expensive models or make your homemade version. And these are some of the things that you want to think about. You want to protect from draft, any wind draft. Typically you'd have this in a protected area, either a garage or if you have a barn of some kind, and the heat source for it, you want to, there is a pattern here where you're manipulating or you're managing the source of the heat, changing it, and you have thermometers to measure this. Well, how do you change that? Well, it's how high or low you drop your lamp. That really is going to change the temperature where the chicks are. So the key thing is to keep it clean. Keep the bedding clean, keep the water clean, and keep the food clean, okay? Now remember the origins of chickens from the jungle, where how did they escape predators? They roosted on branches of trees. Came down in the day and they foraged for insects or anything they could catch and plants. Yes, chickens have come a long ways since those days, but they still have some of the same instincts, and that is roosting or trying to perch. And they will do that at this stage. You'll see this right away. Why do I mention that? It was because they will foul your water feeders, your the waterers and the feeders. And you'll have to be checking this because you don't want them drinking or eating messed up food and water. All right, so it's a lot of attention has to be spent to follow this. And pretty much, I'll keep on repeating. We basically provide water and feed access all the time to chickens. You know, they're high metabolic animals. They consume a lot of water, and I'll go over for some of the reasons why that is. Oh, this is interesting. So you can actually look down on your brooder and see if you are managing it right by where your chickens congregate. So the circle would be like where the light is placed. Okay, so obviously here you've got a draft coming in somewhere. They're all huddled away from one side. Here you've got it too low, and here it's too high. You know, so you're going to want to see this pattern where they're using the entire brooder space and starting to socialize like they'll do right away. Okay, how do you tell if you have hens or roosters? Well, they're people better than I can tell a lot earlier than when you go and to recognize these different characteristics. There are techniques of looking at the pointedness of some of the feathers and like that. But this, I mean, the first time you hear a rooster state the fact that he's a rooster, you will know. But these will, and you will be fooled. Sometimes you think you have a hen coming along, and lo and behold, it's a rooster. But these are definitely outwardly anatomical indicators as to help you, because obviously if you do this and you do end up with roosters, you're going to have to find another home for them somewhere. Because if you're in the urban area, then you can only have hens. So let's talk about a little bit about the biology of digestion of chickens, all right, to understand what you want to be doing to make sure you have healthy chickens. Well, okay, if the food starts at the mouth, one of the first things you notice is that chickens don't have teeth, all right? They do not have the ability to break the food down as when you have teeth. So the food is going to come in through the mouth, and then it's going to come down the esophagus, and the crop is an organ where food becomes stored, and it starts to get lubricated and sort of masked a little bit. So that's where the water is going to be very important, as well as the food from the crop. Now it's packed together. It's coming down to this other organ, proventriculus. That's where the digestive enzymes and juices are starting to be secreted, all right? And it's still not digesting there, because remember, nothing's been chewed up. Gets to the gizzard. That is the chicken's equivalent of teeth. So that's what the chickens figured out, how to start churning and physically breaking down food is in the gizzard, because in the gizzard is actually grit, pieces of rock that they can peck, usually if they're allowed to forage, or you buy it as a supplemental feed. Granite grit, they sell it. And you'd have a separate feeder for that, and the chickens will come and get as much as they need. And so from the gizzard, now we've had the chance, it's been physically broken up, the enzymes are there. Now that's in the intestine, just like us, that's where the absorption of the nutrients will happen. And so you can see it has a pretty windy road to go to, and before it comes to the end, you'll see a couple wing organs off to the side called ceca, all right? Now, those are also very important, because these house the beneficial intestinal microflora, all right? Just like we do. We depend on the beneficial microflora for maximum absorption of our nutrients that we eat. And just like if you have to take an antibiotic for something, well, you can eat some yogurt or something to help replenish that. You can feed your chickens some yogurt too. If you had to use antibiotic to deal with the disease that they had. Ordinarily, you don't, okay? And so at the end of the road is the cloaca, and the vent, of course, is where everything exits the chicken. So that's how they eat. And these, the poultry industry, because they raise their chickens in a confinement operation, and the chickens they never even leave a cage. They have figured out to the nth degree the nutrition requirements of chickens. And so when you go buy commercial feed, it's based on that research and information. And so, but at the same time, we have to be cognizant that there are definite growth stages of chickens that require different kinds of feed. Okay, the quality of the feed is important. Yes, ma'am.
Can you add the grit to the feed?
Yes. Yes. So we can talk about the starter, grower, finisher, layer, and you'll have different feeds that use this terminology. So you could have starter or chick feed, you could have grower feed, and you could have layer feed. Because here's the breakdown of the protein requirements at different growth stages, all right? And you can see how it changes a little bit, and you don't want to not supply the protein that it needs for any given growth stage, because then you'll have abnormal development, and the chickens will not be happy. And now in the wild, if you let your chickens forage in the yard, you know, they're going to go after more insects if they need more protein, you know, and so. But at the same time, it's generally said, you know, your nutrition for the chickens, somewhere between 10 and 30% could be replaced by what they could forage in your backyard, if you know, or in a pasture setting. You still want to use some formulated feed that have them in feeders that they can get to when they need it. Now, in terms of additives, because this is for your own personal consumption, I would really recommend anytime you go buy some commercial feed, read the ingredients, because you should not need to have some of the additives that maybe the commercial industry uses. So antibiotics, hormones, I mean, these are things that you wouldn't need as for backyard flock raisers. Coccidiostats. Now, coccidiosis is a common problem with chickens. It's actually a protozoan that really only affects the chicks. They grow out of it as they get older, but it can interfere with the absorption of nutrients, and it can really set them back and make very, very sick chickens. So this is a common additive to a lot of the commercial feeds that you might see. And it's really you don't always have this problem, but you'll come to learn when you do have it where you are. So it could be something that you do want to have in your feed. All right, some rules of thumb about feeding. No matter how good the price is, don't stock up for a long period of time. You know, because one of the key things is the quality of the feed. Not letting it go moldy, even if you think you have a good storage area for it. So, you know, get enough for several weeks. A full-grown chicken, we're talking about maybe somewhere between 1 pound to 2 pounds per week. You know, so, but that's going to change on the season. You know, if it's hot, things slow down generally. You know, the egg laying slows down. The activity of the chickens. You do maybe move your coop if you can, if it's movable, into the more shady area to keep them cooler too. But Also, length of day is a big factor. As we get into shorter days, that'll affect their feeding behavior, definitely their egg-laying behavior. Don't, also to save money on this commercial feed that you buy, you know, don't necessarily fill up your feeders to the brim because they do tend to waste a lot of feed. And check your feed, make sure it's not real extra fine. You know, you want more pellets or granules if it's real fine. And sometimes, like if you order stuff on, well, not necessarily. It's when you order online, even handling in feed stores. Sometimes just moving the bags around, the pellets or granules get crushed and it's too fine. The chickens aren't going to be happy with that. They want a little bit larger size to the feed. So just check that when you go out to do your shopping. There is organic feed available online. I would hope some of the new suppliers of feed, pet stores, and the other folks that are trying to provide you the supplies, as more people get into chickens, will have that available, but it's relatively hard to get right now. And consider it to be twice as expensive at least. So 25-pound bag of conventional, somewhere $12, $15, at least twice that much for organic. So these are all things, as you're watching your chickens and you're seeing their interest in food and uptake of food is changing, these are all possible reasons. And you got to sort of be a detective and try to figure out, okay, what's going on here. But it's a good thing to monitor, to try to keep tabs of how your chickens are doing. Some of these feeders here, again, these trough types here, you can see a bar they put here. These are nice in that more chickens can be fed with them. But remember that roosting behavior? So they put a bar on there that actually is a roller. So they try to jump up, they'll fall off. You know, whereas this one here, you know, you can hang and you can actually keep on increasing the height. So that, and the other thing is, you know, keeping in mind that instinct to roost, you're going to have roosting areas in your coop. And then you can also do outside ladders of roosting poles. That this will be where they go to do if they're roosting, and not on your feeders or your waterers, because you don't want that to be a constant thing that you've got to. I mean, yes, you do have to check it and clean it out as on a need basis, but you know that'd be one way to try to minimize that kind of work. So again, the idea is that this is all gravity fed, and it's available to the chickens as they decide they need it. So you're not always, and so you can different ways of rigging these things up. They come in different sizes. I believe you can see some different sizes out in the hallway. You know, kind of help you maybe be able to get away for a couple days and not always have to take care of your chickens. But you can also feed them kitchen scraps, okay? And so, but at the same time, look at this website for the ones that you should not be feeding them. Raw green potato peels, for example. Don't feed them raw eggs either. We don't want them to get taste for their own eggs. All right. This is interesting. This is one that is out on the market. It's called a grub composter, and it produces a maggot that you can use for chicken feed. It's a high-protein chicken feed. So when your chickens are molting, which is when they shed their feathers and they grow new feathers, that's when they need extra protein. This could be one way you do it. Or you give them the other kind of feed that has a higher protein content. This is kind of an interesting new product that's out there.
Do we have black soldier flies down here?
We do, yeah. They'll naturally come in here. All you have to do is put your kitchen waste in there, let it compost, and they will come right into it. And they're a fly that doesn't want to mess with you or your house. All they want to do is lay eggs in organic matter. And this is designed so that the maggots actually crawl up and fall into a bucket. So you just come around, get the bucket, and treat your young ladies to a nice treat. So remember I said you can expect them to be able to forage a little bit. Some interesting data on the quality of eggs when you do allow your chickens to forage as much as possible in terms of the improved nutrition of the eggs. And I've already gone over how that works with the Sika housing the beneficial microbes. Now, remember, chickens don't have a digestive system like a cow. All right, they can't break down the cellulose of forage of plants as much as cows and other animals with that kind of digestive system can, but they can digest some, and that releases the vitamins and the enzymes of the plant material, and that's why if you ever compare a fresh egg from one that was allowed to forage, the yolk is so much brighter. You know, it's just night and day, and that's partially the reason for it. So, okay. And as you watch your birds, you know, keep in mind there is foraging behavior for it. So they will spend most of the time in the early part of the day and the later part. So during the middle, they'll probably want to come back to the coop and stay in the shade. And that's, you know, so you would have the other kind of food there for them as well. And there's some great YouTube videos if you want to see some chickens going after lizards and snakes and everything, because they are omnivores. They will go after anything that they think they can handle that comes into their area. So health-wise, observation, record. Just know your chickens and know when they're not being having their regular behavior. All right. So there's if you follow good maintenance, keep your coop clean and the water clean and the feed clean, you'll have minimal problems with health issues. Okay. What's that?
The lifespan of a chicken?
Well, they can go up to about 10 years. 10 years. The egg laying ability drops off though with time. So usually around 3 years, they say 3 to 4 years is the maximum. Maximum production of eggs. So, but you know, quite a few parasites are capable of being problems. There's, you know, you'd be checking your chickens all the time for lice and mites and things. Their dusting behavior is designed to help control those external parasites. So that's a good thing if they do that, all right? Prevent having to use insecticides and things on them. But, you know, preventive practices, all those things go a long ways to just about eliminating a lot of health problems that are very more common in the poultry industry. The coop?
Yeah.
Well, you could, I mean, if they're not going to come out on their own, they usually will come out in the morning. They're very curious.
They stay around, or I had a neighbor who had a bunch of cows.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Well, I can give you some pointers if you want to come by the table. We can talk. I mean, usually it's not a problem because they want to come out in the morning.
So they want to go back into the food and water, or
at night, it's instinctive behavior. They want to go back up to the coop, to the roost, and everything. So checking for mites and lice. These are things that you learn to do. And symptoms that you would be getting familiar with, okay? Okay. So what I wanted to also make sure that I impress on you is that there's many regulations that you have to know about the housing that you need to use, and there's many blueprint or design features that make for a good coop, all right? And you can be quite creative unless your ordinances restrict you on what you can build in terms of the size and the setback from property lines. But the other thing to keep in mind is that you need to practice what's called biosecurity. And that means you don't bring in outside birds to your flock right away. Quarantine them, make sure that they don't have anything that could be passed on to your flock. All right? That even includes borrowing equipment. That you have to clean it, sterilize it before you bring it back. And if you do that, then you're going to, I mean, it's okay to have people come in and enjoy seeing your birds, but keep in mind that they can catch things from people as well. So make sure people practice good hygiene, as well as you are quarantining any bird that you see in your flock to try to figure out what's wrong with them before it gets spread to all of them. Okay, I think that my time is up for you, and I will be in the back, and love to talk to you then. Okay.